Alright, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, YouTuber, bodybuilder, influencer Jesse James West, with over 3 million followers on YouTube, competed in a natural bodybuilding competition today in the classic physique division where he weighed 172 pounds on stage. And this was at the 2023 Summer Shredding Championships in Houston, Texas. Now, he won his class in Classic Physique. He did not win the overalls in Classic Physique, but he also competed in the men's physique division where he finished second overall. So I just wanted to start out this video giving Jesse James West some love here because I think it's always a positive thing when natural bodybuilding gets the spotlight, and on a channel like his with so many followers, and he's become such a really big influencer in the fitness space lately, to compete naturally, showcase that process, and show what a legitimate natural physique will realistically look like on stage, I think is always just a net positive thing. I love to see it. I think on one hand, it gives his fans a very realistic perspective on what natural bodybuilding looks like, what the end result is going to be. And I think in a broader context, it probably inspires a lot of his fans and people watching that video to compete naturally instead of enhanced, because you can still look pretty good. You can still win your class. You can still do very well at a show. And I think to a lot of the younger kids that are wanting to be social media fitness influencers or whatever, you can still compete, do a video, and he's probably going to get millions of views on this video. Right now it has hundreds of thousands, and he's natural. I think it's very impressive overall. I think he's got a very, very solid natural physique. So hats off to him, much respect, and I always appreciate someone promoting natural bodybuilding on it with a spotlight like he has. Now, next up in the news, let's talk about this latest physique update from Hadi Choopan, which he says in the caption was filmed a month ago, which would put him around 20 weeks out from the 2023 Mr. Olympia, where he will be attempting to defend and repeat his Olympia title from last year. So look, I've got to be honest, compared to everybody else, at least for the most part, everybody else that's qualified for the Olympia right now, I feel like we have seen the least physique updates from Hadi Choopan out of any of them. So he's kind of following similarly in the footsteps of Big Ramy and being a reigning champion, not very active on social media. He's still somewhat active. He still posts maybe once a month, maybe a little bit less than that, a physique update, a recent physique update, I should say. But honestly, I would say since the Olympia last year, we really haven't seen much from him at all. And I think that's the primary reason why I think so many people are already looking past Hadi Choopan. And when they talk about the 2023 Mr. Olympia, a lot of people are saying Nick Walker, Samson Dauda, Derek Lunsford, Andrew Jacked, talking about some of these up-and-comers as if they are the next in line to the Mr. Olympia throne, but forgetting that Hadi Choopan is the man that they have to beat. And I think if you look at all the updates that we've seen so far from most of the other guys, most of the other top guys that are already qualified for the Olympia, not competing before the Olympia, keep in consideration that this update from Hadi is 20 weeks out. So a lot of the updates we're seeing now, 15, 16, 17 weeks, some of the updates that we've seen from these guys recently. I think the takeaway here is you never see Hadi out of shape. I think at 20 weeks out, he's in better shape than anybody that we've seen. And again, I say that with the caveat, not these guys that are competing right now, guys that are already qualified that are right now 15, 16, 17 weeks out from the Olympia in the recent updates that we've seen. Not like they're competing around the corner, guys that are prepping exclusively for the Olympia at 15, 16 weeks out. Hadi Choopan at 20 weeks out, I think is in better shape than anybody else that we've seen so far. So if you look at the Olympia qualified competitors list, which was just updated a few days ago following the 2023 Chicago Pro, Brett Wilkin, we've seen recent updates from him. Again, I would say Hadi Choopan is ahead. Derek Lunsford, recent updates from him. Hadi Choopan, to me, looks ahead. Again, and these are updates from 20 weeks out, not recently. Nick Walker, same thing. Brandon Curry, I haven't really thought much about Brandon Curry recently, but we haven't seen anything from Brandon, have we? I feel like I haven't said Brandon Curry's name in a video in like 6 months. Big Ramy, Samson Dauda. We're going to talk about Samson, I think, in the next story. Behruz Tabani, Tonio Burton, Ross Flanagan, Ian Valliere, Michael Crizzo, Phil Klahar, Andrea Presti, Hassan Mustafa, Justin Shire. So with the exception of Hassan and Justin, because obviously they just competed, they just qualified, they're in pretty good shape right now. I would say most of the guys on this list that we've seen recently, Hadi, conditioning-wise, looks to be ahead of most or all of them. And I think people need to remember, he is probably the most consistent guy in that Olympia lineup when it comes to conditioning. He's rarely ever, if ever, off. So if his conditioning was good enough to win last year, and I would say last year wasn't even the best that we've seen Hadi, he's going to look as good or better conditioning-wise this year. He's going to be very, very difficult to beat. And I think this update is a reminder of that. Hadi is always on. You never really see him fat. You never really see him watery. You never see him bloated. And that is one of those things that becomes a serious competitive edge for bodybuilders, is the guys that are consistent and show up. They beat guys that are bigger, freakier, maybe even more balanced, maybe even more aesthetic if those guys don't show up the same level. But Hadi is one of those guys where he's very consistent. He's got a pretty freaky amount of size. He's pretty aesthetic. He's pretty balanced. He can hit a vacuum pose, small waist, V-taper. He's got some crazy body parts like his quads, his biceps, his shoulders. So he is that perfect balance of all these dangerous attributes in bodybuilding. And that's why I think people are really writing him off maybe too soon. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Will Hadi Choopan repeat and reclaim and defend his title in 2023? Now, next up in the news, the leaked video of Samson Dauda. This is courtesy of the Cutlercast manager Matt and Milos Sarshev. This video provided by Milos to the Cutlercast. They were talking about this the other day. Samson Dauda at 330 pounds in this video. His weight has been steadily climbing since the Arnold Classic. He's been doing all these, travel and guest appearances, and it seems like every time he does a posing video, his weight increases. It's 218, then it's 220, then it's 225, 227, now 230. We know that the most that Samson has ever weighed in an offseason was last year's offseason, where he got up to 336 pounds. So the first thing that goes to my mind when I look at this video is, A, Samson looks a lot better in this video than he looked at 336. So if he's this lean and he's still maintaining this type of physique at 330 pounds, does that mean he's going to surpass last year's 336 in this year's prep, this year's offseason prior to the Olympia? I think he will. I think this year we're going to see Samson hit 340 or greater. But again, I do think it's worth pointing out that Samson is taller than Ramy. So when we talk about Samson in this conversation of guys that are 300 plus in the offseason and still look really good, you've got to really factor in the height. Because Samson is competing against bodybuilders like Derek Lunsford and Hadi Choopan that may, in those cases, be 6 or 7 inches shorter than him. It's a significant height difference, and some of the weight is part of that, but not all of it. So my second thought when watching this is that I think this is the best 330 pounds has ever looked on a bodybuilder in the offseason. He's maintaining not only a pretty good condition for a guy that weighs 330, but all the aesthetic elements of his physique, his lines, his midsection's not blown out. Like I said, you can still see striations and vascularity and really deep separation, and some of the muscles still at 330. And even when Ramy got to these kinds of crazy weights in the offseason, which I don't know if he still pushes it as hard now, I don't think Ramy looked as aesthetic as Samson at those weights. He looked freaky. He looked like a monster. But I don't think he maintained the same aesthetic integrity that you see from Samson here. So my question to you guys is, would you agree that this is the best 330 pounds has ever looked on an off-season bodybuilder? And I think watching this video, I think a lot of us also need to start considering the possibility that Samson Dauda could be a top 3 Olympian this year. I don't think that's unrealistic looking at this video. Now, next up in the news, another physique update from GoodVito at right around 7 weeks out from the Europa Pro, where he's going to be making his pro debut. And I know I've really hammered this point home, but I really think this is one of the most exciting years for bodybuilding pro debuts that we've seen in a very, very long time. When you talk about GoodVito, Carlos Thomas Jr., what we just saw happen with Justin Shire. Hell, if you look at the past 3 years or so in bodybuilding, I think it's been the best 3 years as far as new talent in bodybuilding are concerned. The past 3 years, think about it. Nick Walker's pro debut, Andrew Jack's pro debut, Michael Krizo's pro debut, Derek Lunsford's open bodybuilding debut, and now GoodVito, Carlos Thomas Jr., Justin Shire. So I really like to talk about these guys, and I really like to show their updates because Each and every single one of these guys making their pro debut that we're talking about right now, I can see the potential that they have, and I could easily see any of these guys, depending on how good they show up at their pro debut, skyrocketing straight to the Olympia stage this year, going and winning that pro debut, and then boom, they're at the Olympia, and they have a shot. GoodVito has a physique where he has a shot at top 10. Carlos Thomas Jr. has a physique where he has a shot at top 10. It's dependent on conditioning and depending on how they peak. But I talk about these guys so much because I genuinely believe they have that potential, and I genuinely believe these are interesting situations. Like we just saw Justin Shire beat Blessing Awodabu, Patrick Moore, two very established bodybuilders. Regan Grimes and Nathan Diasha are two guys that GoodVito is going to have to beat. Carlos Thomas Jr., Hunter Labrada, and Andrew Jack, he's going to have to beat them. So you could have these David and Goliath situations at these pro debuts where these guys that are, again, they're not pros yet. They're making their debut as a pro, could beat seasoned, experienced, top Olympia placing pros. The pro debut of GoodVito and the pro debut of Carlos Thomas Jr. could become major upsets in bodybuilding. It could be a huge disruption that people didn't even see coming. So I want to make sure we think about that. There's a chance that GoodVito here could go and beat Regan Grimes and Nathan Diasha and go straight to the Olympia. Now, I wanted to show this update in particular because I feel like he is trying to, he's hiding that belly button. He's hiding that, what I believe is an umbilical hernia. But overall, again, his legs look really solid. We didn't know the extent of the leg injury that he had at that guest posing in Brazil. His legs look fine. In fact, they look great. They look really freaky, really deep separation. He looks really dry, crisp here. Midsection looks okay, but again, I think he is intentionally covering that section where there's a little bit of a distension, a little bit of the umbilical hernia looking situation with his belly button. He's kind of covering that with the text. I believe that was intentional, and I do believe that will be something that he has an issue with if it's not addressed before the pro debut. We saw firsthand at that guest posing, it did not look pretty on stage. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. How do you think his pro debut is going to go? How do you think Carlos's pro debut is going to go? And the final story that I've got for you guys today, speaking of Regan Grimes, he will be facing GoodVito at that show, the Europa show in Spain. And this right here is the latest update from Regan Grimes as he prepares to compete in Spain and Italy, making his return to the professional bodybuilding stage. And I'm assuming, hoping to make his return to the Olympia stage through qualifying at one of those shows, which would mean he would have to win, which would mean, in the case of the Spain show, he would have to beat GoodVito. And look, I've always been someone that was a fan of Regan's physique. I've always been someone to say, hey, if you look at Regan's physique on social media, I haven't seen really an underwhelming picture of Regan. I think he looks good in this video. I think he looks good in the majority of his posts. It's just a question of how's it going to translate to the stage. And in Regan's case, it's really hard to say because I've always felt he looks crazy impressive on Instagram. But it hasn't always been the case that he's delivered that same look to the stage. I want to see him do well. I think he's got great lines. I think he brings something different to the open bodybuilding division. But I don't know. I've got to be honest. I think he's going to have a difficult time at this Europa show in Spain. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. That's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel. Click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.